Hey, what's up, people? Soccer Dad Pod time. Coming in hot with a little buzz from yet another St. Louis artist, Mr. Elliot Pearson and the Passing Lane. Go check it out on Spotify. That 0.0004 cents per spin will someday buy him a beer. But, you know, this is a St. Louis-based show, so we're going to toss out St. Louis love. And as I've told you before, apparently the attorneys over at Spotify for those big artists that make those big songs, they don't want me playing their music anymore. So I'm going local. Screw them. We're gonna help the little man. JB here with Soccer Dad Pod. First things first, I want to thank all of you for continuing to listen to the show. I'm a numbers guy, you know, and by numbers, I mean I look at charts and pictures, and when the numbers and the bar goes up and to the right, that's a good thing. Keeps going up and to the right, so thank you for supporting the show. Like, review, follow, share, send it around, because the fall season is going to be here soon. Parents are going to start to, we're all going to be driving our kids all over this country, doing the thing they love, the sport we love. Put us on in the car, carpool, pickup line, all that stuff. We'll help you out. We'll get you through it. Our guests will get you through it. We're just kind of like, helping guide it a little bit. Real quick, I want to go back in time. Previous episode, we had a close friend of the show, and actually probably a friend of the guest today. Mr. AJ Cochran joined us to chop it up, all things soccer. Imagine that. We were over at Llewellyn's in Webster for an off-site, or that's actually called an on-site. We were away from the studio, and we had a little fun, had some pints, talked the game. His new role as starting to scout young talent. Kind of a cool conversation. Go check it out. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my partners in crime, Mr. Zach Lewis and Jared Bertrand. They are obviously not here today. It's a weekday in the summer. One is in Michigan on one of those lakes doing the family thing, probably eating adult vitamins and just waving at his kids from a distance. And the other one is at work looking to take half a day because at the time of this recording, the U.S. of A. is about to play their second game in group play against the, I think the nickname is Ruse. Anyway, it's Australia. It's kangaroo country. Australia's up, second game. Anyway, by the time you're listening to this, you know who won. I don't know who won yet, so I can't prognosticate. I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a little bit. But without further ado, you've read your dashboard. You see who is joining me today. A two-timer, second time round, Mr. Sam Fink from STLFC Glory Lore days. Still has a massive fan base of people that remember those games. And joining Sam and I is his buddy, his ex-Demon Deacon, ex-pro as well. Not from St. Louis, but he's claiming it as home. Mr. Chris Duvall, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you sitting here, stomaching that intro. No notes. I'll show you my screen. That was pure freestyle. Thoughts? Grade me.
Go Deeks.
Go Deeks.
Yeah, one knock, former Deke. We're Deeks for life.
Still a Deek.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'll get it right next time, man. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. How's it going today, by the way?
So good. Happy to be here in this studio. People can't see it, but it's an awesome spot. So thanks for having us.
I tell you what, though, they could go over to YouTube because now we have a camera here on this particular conversation.
Look at that.
They get to see the beautiful windows behind you.
Yeah.
So go check that out too. Before we jumped on, I kind of ran through what I thought would be maybe a little bit of a pathway here for the conversation. And for you, the listener, if you're wondering, what are these guys going to talk about today? We're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk about Chris, since this is your first time through the SDP ringer, we're going to get a little bit of the bio, a little background, where you're from, etc. Walk through up to your current state of going from youth to college to pro for so many years, and then coaching, and now you're part of a new program, new team. here in St. Louis. We're going to talk about all that. And then, Sam, we're going to roll in your opinions, feedback, thoughts, questions as well, because there's so much going on in the world of soccer today. That's where I want to start. I actually want to start at the finish line. If you had to say, like, your favorite thing about the game you love right now, as far as what is going on, a particular team, a particular player, a particular change, or an event or whatever, I mean, I have to assume it's probably the event that's going on right now. But for you, Chris, what's your favorite thing about soccer right now, today?
Yeah, I think we're in a pretty unique spot where I think everyone is collectively able to acknowledge the end of a pretty beautiful era with like Ronaldo, Messi, Modric. Like there's a whole class of players that are going through their last moments, and these are the guys that we grew up watching and idolizing. So, I mean, I think that's probably the fun part. You don't always get to know it's the end before it's the end, and we're all getting to watch and appreciate that.
That's a super. I actually love that reply because I would not have guessed that. We're at a reflection point, right? Where, just the other night, you kind of had a tale of two cities between the two games in particular as it pertains to Messi and Ronaldo, right? Messi goes out, and I think there's a big chunk of the world, mind you, because obviously there's always the Ford or Chevy argument, Coke or Pepsi, right? And it's Messi or Ronaldo. And the last few years, because of the last World Cup, et cetera, Messi maybe has been pulling out into the lead, globally speaking. But there was a lot of people kind of waiting and expecting a little bit of a train wreck in Argentina's first game. That didn't happen.
No.
No, not at all.
And I find it, and I love this part of the conversation because the two of you kind of, you have the ability to reflect not too long ago when your own time came to an end, and here we are watching these literal all-time greats. They're there. Have you thought about that at all, Sam, watching the tournament and thinking of these names that this will be their last event?
Yeah, I think it's not something that's been in the forefront of my mind like Chris's, but it's I think we take for granted just how good it has been for as long as I've been interested in soccer. These guys have been around, so it's exciting to see who's going to kind of take the throne and ascend to the top. But yeah, certainly something we should bask in for a while.
Let's take Messi and Ronaldo out of the conversation for just a second, because I do think they're on a different plateau than everybody else. Some of the other players that are in this tournament that are clearly in the ninth inning or the bottom of the ninth. Who are some of the names that?
Yeah, before you answer that, I'll say too, just on the back of that, we were talking in the car. It's like you said that those two specifically are on a different plateau than the others, and I've found it very enjoyable to see guys like Thierry Henry and Zlatan talk about those two when those two aren't known for their humility all the time, and nor should they be, because they had insane careers. But for those two guys to talk about how Messi and Ronaldo are on different planets is telling and pretty cool. Like there's just such a deep respect for two of those guys. So I appreciated hearing that a lot. But go ahead.
Yeah, who are you looking for in the tournament that is kind of, again, one of those OGs that you want to see stand out, that you want to see do well and maybe surprise?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of guys. I mean, Modric, I want to see him do well. Salah, I want to see do well. Sadio Mane, I want to see do well. There's so many guys that I feel like 5, 6 years ago were, if Messi and Ronaldo weren't around, were the guys that would be competing for the Ballon d'Or. And now it's like this is the end for a lot of them.
How do you guys view the kind of, as because this happens every 4 years where we see the cycle where there at every single World Cup there are players that will never play again, and at every single World Cup there are new players that you're wondering what's next, what is the ceiling. And in this particular World Cup, the three names in particular that just, like, if somebody were to ask me, pick the three babies, who you taking? I'm taking Haaland, I'm taking Yamal, and I'm probably taking Mbappe, even though he now is kind of a vet in the tournament. He's still a puppy, right? Who do you guys like outside of the kind of those obvious names, or maybe expand on the obvious names as far as like who's taking this baton?
Go ahead.
I'm a big fan of Musiala. I just love to watch him play. He's still pretty young. I'd put him in that same category. I just don't feel like people give him the same level of reputation as the rest of the guys, but I think he's producing and doing just as many amazing things as a lot of those guys. And he's the kind of guy that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
What about the expansion of the tournament? Where what is it, 46 teams, etc.
Yeah.
You know, there's a number of games with teams, specifically nations, that the vast majority of Americans in particular have no idea that they were even a nation, right? So it goes from the usual suspects to this truly global expanded event. Do you think it's been good for the game, or are you net neutral, or is it a negative?
Yeah, I think I'm neutral right now. I'm just trying to process it all still and see how the later stages go. But I do find it fun to watch a Congo go out and get their first ever point, and see the emotion on some of those guys' faces because they never dreamed that they'd be able to play in a World Cup, let alone get a point. So I'm always cheering for the underdog, so I love a good underdog story. And when those teams, provided they can put up a good fight like they are, I think it's entertaining and it's fun to watch.
What about yourself, man?
Yeah, I think I came into the tournament thinking it wasn't a good thing, but now after watching, I love it. Like Curacao losing 7-1, cheering like they won because they scored their first goal. The country's smaller than St. Louis.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's beautiful. And for the neutral fan, they get two things. They get an amazing storyline of this country that they've potentially never heard of, that's so small, that does something amazing just to be there. And then, again, for the neutral fan, they get to see a lot of goals. I think it's kind of a win-win for everyone that doesn't have a dog in the fight. And again, yeah, kind of like Sam, just a sucker for a good story.
So the other thing I've been thinking about, because I think there's an overlay or kind of like a parallel narrative that is occurring in real time as it pertains to the expansion of the tournament, having a nation like Curacao and Haiti and some of these literal micronations where guys are probably plumbers during the day, right? And then they're playing in the World Cup and they're getting a goal against Germany. You have the reality is the game has always been global, but it appears to be the delta between the haves and the have-nots is closing fast. And I think you can look at it specifically here in America, right? Let's talk, the compare and contrast of college soccer, right? Go back 10 years, 15 years, 20 years especially, you had true blue bloods, right? ACC teams in particular. You would have a handful of Big East teams. You'd have, the one-off maybe from the West Coast or, to Stanford, UCLA. They step up now. Conferences are really weird right now. But college soccer, over the past 10 years, kind of with, starting with Marshall and then West Virginia, Vermont 2 years ago, Bryant making a run last year. These schools that historically, they're not, they were never deemed to be soccer institutions. The World Cup is showing that there are nations that were deemed to be whipping boys that are now not. Do you see the parallel? Would you agree that soccer now is not about the haves and have-nots? It's about kind of everybody at this point?
Yeah, I agree, and I'd be interested to know kind of where that opening has come from. Why is that happening? Is it like
Instagram?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Like I was just about to say, you say it jokingly, but like, are these nations being opened up to a new level that they were like, wow, I didn't even know that you could do that, and then you start to train for it. I mean, I think that's the best part about playing with players better than you is you get in there and you're like, never even thought to do that. That's pretty cool, and then you start to try to aspire to be like it. So. I do wonder what the cause is, but I can see the parallels for sure.
Can you imagine, like, as a scout, like if you're a pro scout, a true, like, high-level FA scout or Bundesliga or even MLS, et cetera, if you're a scout at this event, you have to be going to the micronation games because you're seeing quality on the field that you would have never expected.
Yeah, I actually think it's an awesome segue and question for Chris, because he worked as a scout for City and went to a lot of college games. Like, what was that like when you went to a no-name game to watch some player?
Yeah, it was interesting because like there was a scouting department at City, and they would, the whiteboard would be filled with 60 college games that they needed to go to over the course of however many months. And so they would go through and pick kind of a pathway and say, okay, Thursday you're going to go to Penn State, and then you'll fly Friday to St. John's, and then Saturday you're going to go to Wake Forest. And they had a list of specific players I was supposed to watch in each game, but I had been coaching all year, so I don't know any of the players. So I'm just watching a game, and if the player that I notice happens to be the one that's on the list, well then, big win. But most of the time it was not like that. It was not the player that I noticed that was the one that I was supposed to be noticing. So
how do you manage that? That is a great segue. Because we hear often quote profile, right? For a particular team, or there's a style of play in which they're looking for a particular player, or again, I'm going to go back to the word profile. I'm going to say it over and over again. And then you go to a game, and maybe your notes aren't that good from the mothership, and you just watch. How do you? What is the it factor for you? What are you looking for? What stands out?
Yeah, for me, it's a player's brain. In 8 years in MLS, the level that I had to jump in my own ability just to maintain the same role in the roster was so big that there were a lot of guys that were better than me that just couldn't make the jump year to year, even once they got there. And so the players that are athletic or flashy or all of those things, when I was playing, I saw an unlimited amount of them come in and then pass right by, because the mental side wasn't there. And so when I'm watching games, it's pretty easy, even at the college level, even at high-end D1 schools, to pick the guy that everyone notices. Mm-hmm. And then the guy that you can see thinking and orchestrating the game with his mind, and the one that the game probably wouldn't flow for his team if he's not in there.
Let me real quick. I want to go back in time real fast, just so that we can kind of set the table, so that as you continue to answer and speak and talk here, there's an understanding from the listener as far as what your pathway was to kind of validate your info, because right now nobody knows you, right? So we're gonna change that. Chris Duvall, you grew up in Georgia, club ball.
Yeah, I played for a club called Concord Fire.
What part of Georgia?
Duluth, Georgia. It's like 20 minutes northeast of Atlanta.
Okay. Was that in the DA days?
DA was created my junior year of high school.
Okay. So you played high school soccer.
Played high school soccer.
State championships.
Lost in the state championship, unfortunately.
Probably a game that you remember near the top of most of your games in your whole career.
Yeah, very, very vivid memories of that, which is crazy to think. But yeah, it's one of the most clear memories I have.
So you're down in the Southeast. You're obviously you're standing out. You're on a good high school team. You're on a good club team. Wake. Well, the college process comes along, and you end up at Wake. Was that your goal? Was your dream to be college player, or were you already dreaming to go above and beyond that? And how did you end up at Wake?
Yeah, when you're playing in the front yard with your brother, you always dream about playing pro and playing for the U.S. national team. That was never a realistic goal of mine. My thought was, I'm going to use soccer to get into the best academic school that I possibly can, so I can set myself up for my future. And then I was not super heavily recruited. I ended up at Wake because a Wake alum was coaching a team. We played against his team. I had a great game, and he told the coaches to come watch me. So even, once you get to Wake, and Sam went through this, they make us go to summer school so that you can graduate in 3.5 years, just in case you end up going to the draft.
Summer school is optional. Just want to protect them for that.
Yeah, summer school is in fact optional.
Never know when Big Brother's listening,
The NCAA is not listening.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Well, now every other team in the ACC is like taking a soundbite of this. Yo, look what they're doing.
We never do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you end up at Wake, and it's funny because just in this, hearing the story for the first time, this is something. Hey, parents, hey, kids, listen. You never know who's watching. You never know who's there. You never know what the connection's going to be, because you probably, that was a happenstance situation.
Yeah. I was gung ho, ready to go to College of Charleston and live at the beach, and that was it. And then Wake Forest comes around, and they had been to 4 straight Final Fours, and it's like, well, how could you don't say no to you don't say no. But
Were you guys on the same time, or?
I was a year younger than him.
Okay. So you were there at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 3 years. Yep.
So you go to Wake. You have a great career at Wake. You mentioned earlier how that brain, that mindset was what helped you ratchet through your pro career. I'm assuming there was a similar experience during your college years, because college isn't the ceiling. There's obviously pro beyond that. It was always a dream and or a goal. At what point during your college career did you realize, I think I'm going to get paid to do this. I think I'm going to the next level. And now I didn't say paid a lot. I'm just saying pay some bills.
That moment didn't come for me until after I had graduated.
Really?
Yeah, and very much after I graduated. I had no thought that I was going to play professionally. I had kind of made an agreement with my parents that they would help support my lifestyle while I go play in ASL for a year, and then I'd have to get a real job. And I ended up going to a small combine that Real Salt Lake holds, just so that they can look at some fringe players. And that was kind of the moment that I was like, oh, actually, I might be pretty good at this, because my whole thought going there is going to be like 70 players. And if I can just do something to stand out, maybe they'll take a flyer on me in the last round and pick me in the last round of the draft. And
so I always say, like, I don't care what the level is, even if it's like U10 local club, players always know. And where I'm going with this, if you ask a bunch of 9, 10, 11-year-olds who's the best kid on the team, 99 out of 100 times, they're going to point to the same kid, right? When you went to that combine and you started to play, did you know, like, I'm balling?
immediately.
Right.
Immediately. Like, we went through a training session, and I called I didn't have an agent. No one really was interested in being my agent, but there was a guy that was helping me who ended up being my agent.
That's another story. We can get into that.
I called him after the first training session and was like, I don't think there's a single player here that would touch the field at Wake Forest. How is this the level? I'm so confused. And that was kind of the eye-opening, like, maybe I'm better at this than I thought I was,
Wait, why do you think there was a disconnect between 4 years being a starter, playing at a top school, and kind of not resigning to the fact that you didn't think you were going to be pro? You admitted that it didn't click for you until after you graduated. What do you think the difference was between those 4 years and that one combine?
I think part of it was leaving Wake Forest's environment. It is a program that specifically is built to produce pros. And so everything you do there is professional. You have to strive for perfection. And so in, I think, a lot of our minds, if you aren't perfect, it's not good enough. And you step out of that environment and you realize that not every program has that mentality and mindset. And there are plenty of guys that are successful that are not doing things perfectly or doing things right in every moment. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to set yourself apart when you're then amongst people like that. And so I didn't understand that until the moment that now I'm put around those players and realizing you're taking breaks here and I'm not. And in my environment, that would not be okay. And so pretty quickly you kind of set yourself apart.
Same to you, because obviously you're younger, you're following, and there were so many other alum that elevated to the pro level, to the national team, to Europe and beyond. Is his description kind of like in hindsight? Did you realize you were in a pro pathway program at the time, or did you just feel like I'm in the ACC, let's play?
Yeah, I think that it was very clear that that's what it was, what they were about. Coach Jay didn't hide from that, and we wanted that. We wanted to go into a place like that to be prepared to be our best. I think another aspect that Chris and I have never really talked about, but it just kind of dawned on me. We came into Wake Forest directly after the golden years, like some of the greatest college soccer teams of all time. So Austin Deleuze, Corbin Bone had just left early. Eichel Para had just left early. So we were really restarting with Chris's class, with really young and rebuilding. And so when you come into a place like that, it's pretty tough to uphold that standard. And Coach Jay always pushed us to strive to be like some of those guys. But Cody Arnaud went from college soccer to Everton. So just to give people an idea of the level, the caliber of player
preparedness.
Yeah, and Chris and I our greatest dream would be to play in MLS, but we're expecting to not make it there. So so there's a difference there. So I think it's tough when we're consistently making the NCAA tournament because we're the benefactors of the ACC schedule, but we didn't go to a Final Four. Certainly didn't win a national championship. And so when you kind of compare yourself to the classes that came just before you, it's tough to really believe, like, man, are we that good?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to what I alluded to earlier. Because you guys went to Wake Forest at a time in which you knew that was king of the mountain, right? Coming off the predecessor teams, and just the lore that is the ACC, more broadly. It's everybody's caught up, not to the same degree. And I do think that there are still programs where when you do go there and you talk to the coaches and you look at the facility and you sit down at the table, because I'm lucky enough to be going through it with my own son and listening to those conversations. There is a difference between programs that talk about team need, right? Specifically winning, and then programs that are like, we have a cultural need. We have an expectation. We have a personality kind of litmus, so to speak. And until those things are met, don't even think about playing or winning. Is that, in hindsight, when you look back?
Yeah, I think Coach Jay
the difference?
I think Wake was nice because it was truly was both. Like there was a professionalism, there was a standard. He wanted the best players, but also if you didn't fit into what he required, you were not going to play and you were going to be shipped off. And he told many guys, like, you need to leave. And so that I appreciate that we had both of that, but at the same time, it was tough to have too much self-esteem about yourself because it was always harsh.
So let me ask you guys a generic question, and then we're going to take a quick break. I want to ask about college soccer. As it pertains to development / pathway / resource for not only pro leagues, MLS in particular, but the national team, U.S. soccer more broadly. Because I think you guys would agree, you lived it. You were there, you know these coaches, the alum, et cetera. Historically speaking, if we look at the past 30, 40 years in particular, college soccer has not been valued by the, quote, higher-ups within U.S. soccer, whether it's the national team pathway and or especially MLS pro leagues, right? Do you see that changing in today's market, in today's environment, simply because of the growth of the game. The more and more, I mean, look at the facilities in college soccer now. How many soccer specific stadiums exist now compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? With turf, with, soccer specific facilities, etc. It's changed. Do you see college soccer in particular elevating in the hierarchy, so to speak?
I have no idea, but I think from my experience, the one thing I can say is that it's such an individualized decision. Like, I think you can make it from any pathway. And it feels like right now there are so many more pathways to pro than there ever have been. There's 15-year-olds signing pro contracts, and there's some that are going to USL and then going to Europe, and there's just so many different ways that you can do it now. When I was playing, we would have, academy kids come into training, and one session with them, and this is probably not good for, it probably wasn't great for my reputation with the club, but one session with a kid that's about to sign a homegrown deal, and I'd be like, you need to go to college. 100% you need to go to college. The maturity, the physicality, living outside of your mom's house and having to take care of yourself and understanding what that looks like and how you're going to grow as a human is going to be so much more important for you. And by the way, you're not ready to play pro. Mm-hmm. And MLS is built in a way that every single team enters every year thinking they can win MLS Cup. So they have to win every game right now. No offense, but most clubs don't really care about your individual development at the level that a college team would for 4 years trying to help develop you into a winner. Because these clubs, as much as they do care about the financial side and the development side and whatever, they still have a game to win this Saturday.
Well, I would love to get your take on this because, over the past 4 or 5 years, having a kid in the system and looking at the other 30 or the other 29 MLS academies in particular, what stood out to me is really maybe two exceptions in particular: Philadelphia Union and Real Salt Lake, the academy. Something was in the water, maybe the mindset in which how they approached it. Because I agree with what you say, and frankly, they tell you that. When you do go to an academy these days, they will tell your kid, we are not here for your pathway. We are here to develop pros, right? And if you happen to be that kid, that signing, great, we did our job. But if you're not, we're really not responsible for plan Bs, right? Because it's a business. Philly, though, Union, I don't think it was a coincidence that they seemed to communicate that a little bit differently. They seemed to have more players that were they were celebrating the college pathway more publicly. And oh, by the way, they won a lot of those tournaments, GA Cups, the playoffs, et cetera. And oh, by the way, they got a lot of players that are now true pros, including Kevin, right? Do you sit back now in the catbird seat and you look at these and having such a wonderful experience at a top program in college and having gone through both USL and MLS environments, do you think there's a disconnect that should be addressed? Because it feels as if we're missing a little bit broader opportunities because you never know when a kid's going to break out. How do you view that? And I know it's tricky.
Yeah, I personally think the disconnect is on an individual level. Like, the clubs are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think right now we have, and I even saw it when I was coaching at City 2, there's this urgency and impatience to get to the finish line. And they're not ready. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you'll never be ready. But just because you can sign a pro deal right now does not make that the right thing for you. And it doesn't make your career go the way that it should because, again, with the first team having to win today, they don't have time to take the next step for you. They reward you and give you this contract. The next step means you need to be playing games. You need to be developing and training and learning and growing every day. And the pro environment may not be the best place for every player to do that. And so I think, again, because there's so many avenues to get to the finish line now, to become a pro, there's this impatience to get there, and then you stall out because you don't have the level of development that, fortunately, I was, for me personally, those avenues were not open. I was not good enough to go pro straight out of high school. But it served me well because I had 4 years to grow, and each year at Wake Forest, I played a different role, and my influence grew a little bit. And then by the time I came to the pros, I was 22, and I was more physically ready, more mentally ready, whereas a lot of these kids will sign a deal at 17. They're not ready. Yeah. And maybe they sign a 4-year deal. At the end of it, they're 21, and people look at them like they're this washed-up pro, when really it's a 21-year-old that should be coming out of college. And by the way, they've still been living at home, and they haven't learned how to take care of themselves and their body, and the urgency behind training every day, and what it looks like to win a job and take food off someone's table. And there's just so many pieces that are missed because you didn't take the time to develop as a person. And that doesn't mean that it should be no one's path, but it's not everyone's.
Sam, let me ask the question to you. If you were, let's do a little time warp, knowing what you know, knowing what you did at Wake, your own pathway. If you were an 18-year-old kid graduating in 26 from Edwardsville High School today, what do you think would be different about your own path, given the landscape?
Yeah, it's a different world. Chris and I have talked about this a lot. My path to Wake Forest was very untraditional. They didn't see me at a national team camp and say, I need that kid. I got lucky. And I probably wasn't ready for the level, but rose to it once I got there. I don't know that there's a ton of opportunities to do that anymore. If I were offered college or go into a first team environment, I'd take the first team environment every single time. Knowing if I had to take myself back, like I just know that I would have made that decision because that was the ultimate goal. But I think two things that really rang in my mind when Chris was talking. One is the individual piece. I think that this is for parents, that are talking to their kids. Like, they have to take control over their own destiny. They're not a victim. They have to take control, and doors will get slammed in their face, and they have to find a way to kick that door down and keep going. And I don't think that a lot of people have that skill anymore. And you just have to expect it if you want to go far. The other thing that, as Chris was talking, I think that these clubs they're impatient once they get these kids signed, and then they throw them in, and of course they're not ready, and then they get them out. One thing that I've noticed about RSL in particular, Real Salt Lake, Justin Glad is a kid that plays my position, so I've watched him for a long time. He is a kid that went from high school into the first team environment. And what I saw with him was the club developed him. They put him in the game when he wasn't ready. He made mistakes. They were patient with him in making those mistakes for the end goal of, you are going to be our guy. We're either going to sell you for a lot of money or you're going to be our captain one day. And now he is, and he's the man. And so I just wonder if there's a lot of clubs out there that would benefit from that mindset of, like, we're going to put this kid in the game. He's going to be bad, but we're going to give him a chance to really, really develop.
I mean, don't you think that reality right there goes part and parcel with the reality that, compared to global leagues, the fact that MLS does not have pro rel, why don't clubs take more of those chances? Because even if you do blow it, even if you do go young, and even if you do get your teeth kicked in for a season, right? What is the real risk? Short of pissing off the fans and tickets, and I get that, that's a real risk. Mm-hmm. But if you're really looking at how can we prove, that our player selection is actually an elevated process and not just us going to, an eighth inning European retiree, right? Why, Chris, why do you think more teams don't truly take a stab at that puppy? And I get it, it's a win now, but there needs to be a better answer, I think. these teams need to be held accountable. How do you view it?
I do have an answer. I think it's a pretty hot take.
We're all about hot takes. Wait till we start talking about Kansas City. But
I think the reason is because I think it is a result of the lack of promotion relegation, and it allows each MLS team to think that they can do all the things. You think you can win Open Cup, you think you can win MLS Cup, you think you can make playoffs, you think you can develop players. And I think the teams that have been really successful in one of the avenues or another are teams like Philly that say, we're going to develop players. FC Dallas, we're going to develop players. Salt Lake. And through having that, yeah, you have some down games or some down years, but then you have ultimate success because you're developing players. When I was at Portland, as clear as day, it was like, we want to be a global brand. So they make these jerseys that are beautiful that you can wear as casual gear. You are really involved in the community. And by the way, we don't really care if we take home the Supporters Shield. That's not going to make us a global brand. We want to be in Champions League. Yeah. We want to go to the Club World Cup. So whatever avenue we need to take to win a trophy to get us there, that's the importance. And it was as clear as day. And so everyone in the building has this unified goal, and you know exactly, hey, you know what? We went to Salt Lake this weekend. We went to Kansas City, and we lost. Not that big of a deal. Let's stay above the playoff line to give us a chance to go to the playoffs. We win MLS Cup. We go to Champions League, and then we make our run to become a global brand that people in Europe can know the Timbers logo.
That hatchet, yeah.
And so I think MLS is built in a way that, again, all the clubs think they can do all the things, and there's no one avenue that they pick to go down. And I think it ends up hurting all of the avenues.
I love that take because it is, when you do look at the portfolio of options, right? If you were to take any team and say, okay, what do you value? Where are you going to generate your revenue? What is your brand identity? What is your message to your fans versus the league versus globally, right? There's a million different options. And I think that's uniquely MLS, because if you go to any other pro league in the world, you ask them, okay, what's your brand? What's your goal? It's simple. Win the league. Mm-hmm. Don't get relegated, right? Once those two things occur or don't get relegated, everything else is a distant third, fourth, fifth, right? But in MLS, each one of those things could be the specific priority of the 30 different teams, right? Look at what's going on in New York, right? Bradley and Sorber leaning into these kids. I mean, they got 3 that are sub 19, 2 18s, 1 17-year-old that are getting minutes. Not just getting minutes, they are starting. And now all of a sudden, all 3 of them, the kids have a global brand because European squads in particular are paying attention what's going on, right? And that, like, I love that they're doing it because all 3 of them also came up through their academy, right?
Yeah, and it's culture. I think it's a culture. I think what you just said is culture of a club. RSL, even when I was playing, was building a residency for their youth teams to live there, to eat, breathe soccer. And so I think that the clubs that are doing it well, from the very, very top to the very last kit man or janitor, they're all thinking in one direction. And
let me get your guys' take on this then, along the same lines here. Because we're talking about, I mentioned earlier, kind of the disrespect that college soccer has had. It's a pretty strong word, but I think it's fairly accurate in a lot of circles. And one of the things that really the powers that be would point to as to why college soccer is devalued was the structure of college soccer itself, be it the roster count, more specifically, the season, and then the lack of training and development for the other 9 months out of the year. That's about to change. We're seeing the new rules changes coming down the pipe now. The rosters are all tightened up a little bit. You don't just have two extra practice squads anymore. But we're looking at the shift in the season to instead of getting 22, 23, 24 games crammed into 2.5 months, 3 months, you now are going to have a fall spring, people I've talked to, most of them are like, this is going through. Will that change things, in your opinion? And how? How do you view that as a potential? Because that's a pretty macro change.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be awesome. Those conversations started when we were there. Coach Jay, our coach, was part of that group with Sasha and Maryland, trying to lead that charge. And I think that, so beforehand you would have 2.5, 3 month season, like you said, to cram all these games in. And then the NCAA would say, hey, in the spring, players, we're going to protect you guys. You can only touch a ball 2 hours a week. Well, you know what he would do with the other hours that he had with us? He would just make us run, which is way worse than playing soccer. So it's like, you didn't protect us at all. Thanks.
Or you're bodybuilding.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to go to the gym.
All the while, we're getting fitter, but we're not getting better at soccer, which is what we're here to do. And then the other side of it is you would go, I remember my first season, maybe even my first 2 seasons as a pro, you get to month 5, 6, 7, and you start to really burn out because you're like, crap, I have never had to really last this long at this high of a level, because in college it was just a quick sprint and then you were done. So I think that from the perspective of how are we developing players for the next step, that this decision couldn't have been a better one.
You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that was spot on, especially about the rookie wall you hit once you get there. But I am still on the fence about it, just because, like, again, when I was going to Wake, my thought process was, let me get into the best academic school to prepare myself for the next stage of my life. And so the spring was, you would backload a lot of your classes. You'd take as few classes as you could in the fall so you can focus on soccer. So if you're missing class to go to an away game at Clemson, you're not missing 4 classes, you're missing 1, and then you take more classes in the spring. Well, now if the semester, or if the season is both semesters, I'm thinking, how do the kids still get their education? Because I think that was still a massive piece in my development as a person, to prepare me for the struggles of being a pro. And then also, I mean, I know the league's a little different now than when I was playing, but the odds of you making life-changing money in soccer are slim.
Right.
And so you need to have the kind of mind that can prepare yourself for life after soccer.
Yeah, I think I've heard the arguments on every side when it comes to the student portion of the student athlete argument, as far as what are we going to do. And I think the one that resonates the most for me as a dad with kids in college and going into college is, if your kid is playing at a school that is a high performing school that is constantly going to compete, get into conference tournaments and potentially the national tournament, you're talking about you're guaranteeing Tuesday, Wednesday games, the midweek game and a weekend game, or maybe double headers. It's a lot, right? If you do go to the two fall spring season, you're going to be looking at 1 game a week. You're not going to see the stack that you've seen historically. And I also think too, like, the mental state of these kids as players, as students, as dreamers, it's the little things. If you roll your ankle or you get a little hammy, right? If you get something on, the first week in October under the current environment, and you're out, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, you just missed 10 games, maybe more, right?
Yeah.
And you lose your spot, and and there's a compounding factor there. So I think in the big picture, you're spacing it out. You're giving these kids an opportunity, because I do think that spring is more valuable along the lines of what you were pointing out, Sam, in so much that prepare them for the grind, prepare them for the long haul, because a sprint, it's basically high school seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for any parents that are going through the recruiting process, if you've got a bunch of schools that are looking at you, Wake was very, very upfront about, we are developing winning people. That was a word they used a lot. And so that includes your studies, that includes your athletics. And so that would be part of my decision as a parent is are they wanting to develop my son or daughter as a person in case they don't reach where they're trying to go athletically. And with that in mind, if you put them in a program that is trying to develop good people, I think they will design their systems, their study halls, their things like that to help them academically as well.
Well, and there's the other side of it too for the kids that are looking to pathway to any level of college soccer. The vast majority of schools do not have 28 full rides. Most of them on average are still, even though the rules have changed, they're still in the 9 range. You got a roster of 28. So it's simple math, people. Divide it up. Yeah. And that's going to be back end weighted to starters, upperclassmen, et cetera. So therefore, the grades, the merit component of schools looking at you, that's gold to these schools that are recruiting. Yeah. Because they need to see that you can get it done in the classroom as well. And that's my PSA for the day. Go study, kids.
Get the grades.
Man, that's a lot. I want to maybe shift into. You alluded to it earlier, Sam. Chris, you spent 7 years at the highest level here. A lot of different teammates, a lot of different opponents. And I want to tie back to, I asked the question, the it factor, and you said it's the brain, it's the decision making. It's because technically, tactically, physically, we all basically see everybody in a small range, right? As a player and or as a teammate, going back to when you were playing pro, give me an example of somebody that you're like, holy fuck, you're like total package. And what was it about that particular player? Or maybe the question is, when was the first time you remember as a pro being blown away by how good they are?
Yeah, I got drafted by Red Bull, and there was one other draft pick with me, Eric Stevenson. He got drafted out of Akron. Mm-hmm. The draft, I think things have changed a little bit, but the draft was not like other sports. It was just an invitation to preseason, basically. So I got drafted 22nd, and I got nothing. They're just like, all right, be here at this time, and we're going to be in Florida. And so I go, and the first day we did a 3v3 tournament. It was my very first professional session, and they put me, Eric Stevenson, and another trialist, because none of us were assigned players, another trialist on a team of 3. And the first game we played against Thierry Henry, Dax McCarty, and Tim Cahill.
Heard of them.
And we lost.
Did you just lay on the ground and like go in the fetal position?
I mean, these were probably like 4 or 5 minute games. It was like 70-0.
Hey, this is one of my favorite Chris stories. I don't know if it was that time or not, but tell him the Thierry story where he was just backing you down because you blocked his shot.
Yeah. I mean, so again, my rookie year was his last year of his career. And I'm, trying to break through and earn a spot, get a little playing time. And so we're playing small-sided, and he gets the ball and takes me one-on-one, and he shoots, and I blocked it. And it ended up bouncing off of him. It's a goal kick. And he would do this thing where, like, he would stand still and just stare through the side of your head, and you can, like, feel him looking at you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, God, what? I know I did something wrong. I don't know what it is yet, but I know I did something. And so he stops playing, and he's just staring through the side of my head. And so the game goes, and it's the first of 2 goals wins. Team that loses, you're off. Next team comes on. And so he's staring through the side of my head. His team eventually gets the ball back. He comes, gets the ball, skins me, top corner, goal. I'm just like, okay, well, that happens to everyone.
Yeah.
When he wants to, he scores on command. So whatever, that happens. I get the ball from our goalkeeper. He comes, tackles me, takes the ball off of me, waits for me to get up, skins me, top corner, game over, get off my field. I'm like, okay, that's fine. He's Thierry Henry, I get it. He's mad at me because I blocked a shot. I think it's over. The next time we come back on the field, their keeper has the ball. He like grabs me in my chest, backs me down, like bodies me, spins, top corner. Again, gets the ball again, takes me, top corner, get off my field. And I'm like, dude, I blocked your shot one time. Like, am I just supposed to let you score? Like, I'm doing my job,
Do you think back to an experience like that? Because obviously Thierry Henry is one of the 10, 15 greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, call a spade a spade. Do you start to like get heady or get really cerebral about the game and about where we're at, about, young Americans and what is the difference, because we always talk about, why is it that a nation of 350 million people with all the money and access and power that we have, why can we not get over the hump and be relevant and compete? And I've always argued size is maybe one of our detriments because we are maybe too big, too spread out, too many, Northeast versus the Southwest versus the Midwest. Culturally speaking, we are different. Well, the French, for the most part, yeah, they got differences, but not that much. Same with the Brazilians and all these other nations that are elevating or have been. But the story you just told, there's something in his head that is different. Do you think we, is there something we could do to find players that have that more than just, a box full of technical tricks, that we value because of Instagram or because of a singular, oh, he megged him, and then he shoots and goes 40 yards over, but we're going to talk about that nutmeg. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah. I think the difference in mentality is, it's just a level of desire that I don't know that I see it ever really. And I actually bumped into Thierry when he was coaching Montreal, and the Last Dance, the MJ documentary had just come out. And I told him, I was like, I think the only reason I'm still in MLS is because his mentality reminded me of what you see with Jordan in that Last Dance documentary, where everything is just personal.
Yeah.
And everything is like, I said earlier, it's like taking the food off someone's table, but it literally is that. Like, he, in every single moment, felt like him not winning that singular moment was going to rip the food from his family. And it was truly, deeply personal. And he had to win every moment. And you don't see that. And I don't know if it's the culture of soccer here, but seeing it live and in person and close up every day, it changed the way I went about my job for the rest of my career. And I'm really thankful that I was able to see him in that way, even in his, the sunset of his career, his very last year, to still get glimpses of it. But when I tried to coach even the top players in St. Louis when I was with City 2, that level of hunger, they've never seen it, and so it's impossible for them to know what work really looks like.
When you hear that story, Sam, and I'm sure you've heard it before, you've thought about it, how does that compare to, when you think about Thierry's mindset, that desire, that anger in competition, because that's what it is, right? And I think back to our conversation with you, and for you, the listener, it's episode 113. Go check it out. I'm not going to go rehash it, but you have a story of perseverance, of grit, of a little bit of anger yourself from being told no, you're not good enough, right? No, not this team. Maybe next year. Kind of like, pat on the back. Good try, kid. You took it extremely personally. And you were really eloquent in describing it. And when you hear this story of Thierry kicking our friend's ass there for for just doing your job, and you think back to your own experience, that mindset, how would you describe maybe the difference between the two, or is it different? Is it just same thing, just manifesting in a different way?
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, before you go into that, I do want to just interject and say, I think Sam is probably the closest that I've ever seen to that, because he's crazy. When it comes to that level of mentality, if you don't see it in other people, it feels uncomfortable. Like sometimes his mentality makes people uncomfortable because you see it and you're like, whoa, what was that? Because you don't understand the level of care that it takes to do things at that high of a level. And I mean, the first story that comes to my mind was the beep test at Wake.
So let's hear it. Beep test. What'd you do?
Yeah.
Did you kick the speaker?
The first day, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The first day awake, I got there July 5th. I'll never forget it. I show up. There's actually two parts of the story. I'll tell it quick. But the first part is we had the very first day I got there, like noon, we had pickup with the captain. And so the captain just puts together teams and we play. And I like run up and I had a Jabberwocky soccer ball. It was 2010, right after that World Cup. And it was like my prized possession. I roll up there and I'm all proud of it. I don't know why I felt like I needed to bring my soccer ball to a college soccer practice. Yeah, but that just shows you, where I was. I was out of my depth. I get up there, I roll the ball in. Captain Danny picks it up and like feels it, and it's, I guess it didn't have enough air in it. I thought it was bumped up. This guy punts it over the fence, like far as he can. And so now I'm sat watching my ball go over the fence, my prized possession, and I'm like, do I go get that, or do I practice? What do I do?
Or do I fight him?
Yeah.
I'm
No,
from the
I
east
wasn't
side.
gonna fight him. I was like, oh man, this is a little different. So then that's the first day. Next day, 7 a.m., we have a fitness test. The fitness test, the beep test was after it, but it's called the 2+1, 2 miles in 12 minutes, rest for 12 minutes, 1 mile in 5:30. And if you're fit, that's attainable. It's not, you were breathing hard, but it wasn't a test that was impossible. I had been playing in Development Academy playoffs all summer long. And again, I had a great mentality. So I thought I was very fit. And so this wasn't like I was sitting on the couch. Get there, the goalies lapped me. Like, that's how slow I was. Could hardly finish towards the end, and finished dead last in the team. Go to the coach's office after, and he's like, you should leave. That you've still got, it's summertime, you should leave right now. You can transfer anywhere else, I'll help you, but you're never going to play here. So I went to the hotel that my mom was staying at and cried, as any young boy would do. And we kind of talked through it, and I was like, I think I want to stay and prove him wrong. And so then our mornings would look like 7 a.m. We would run as a team. We would lift. We would go to class if you had any. And then in the evenings, we would play pickup. So we would do that every day. And then after pickup, I would go back to the track and do the workout that we did in the morning. Just do the same one and do two running workouts a day. By the end of the summer, I passed the test and all that good stuff. So that was that story. Almost left Wake Forest before I hardly even got there.
Day one.
Yeah. But as far as mentality, I think that I hope that when people, even today, when people play with me, they can feel that. That's a part of me, but partly because I feel like I have to. That was my overcompensation, was mentality had to be there when skill maybe wasn't. But the difference, I think, is, and maybe Thierry has a different level of intensity. That's very possible too. But the difference between, let's just say, me and Thierry, there's plenty, of course. I'm not comparing myself to him by any means, but he has the mentality, and then he can do things on a soccer field that I've never dreamed of doing, and I didn't even know were possible. And he's been doing it since he was a young kid. Mm-hmm. And so I can have the greatest mentality ever, but to that point, Chris was one of the best players that I had ever played with. Very humble, but he was the best player on our team his senior year. So for me to get mad that Chris blocked my shot and then say like, oh, I'm going to take you on every time, that may result in a goal, maybe result in a couple good duels, but it's not going to be the same story of me hitting at top bends 6 times in a row.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a part of the story, is like the Thierrys of the world can match the mentality with the talent required to perform on the world stage and make him who he is.
What do you value more? You have to choose along those lines. That technical reality of training and touches and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other side of the equation is kind of that mindset / competition. Because coming out of the academy world, as you guys both well know, especially the MLS academies, there are teams explicitly more concerned with development and training than they are with the results of games. Mm-hmm. They will tell you this. Like you can lose at a GA Cup, at a Flex, etc., and the staff be happy with a particular player's performance. That's a mindset thing. Which do you think the desert island? If you had to choose one or the other, constant technical training or constant competition, which would you choose?
I have an answer for this myself, but I think what would be really helpful for the listeners to hear is Chris and I have discussed this at length. We're both mentality guys. He had the same mentality as me. But I think that your mindset on it kind of shifted a little bit as you got into the high level coaching world. So I think if you talk about that transformation, that'd be helpful to hear.
Yeah. I think, and we've kind of touched on bits of it over the course of this, but I think there is a technical deficiency in a lot of youth soccer now, and you get a lot of coaches that are talking tactics to like 13-year-olds, which I think is ridiculous. But the same 13-year-old can't turn under pressure or doesn't understand space enough to know where to now receive so that he can get himself out of pressure with his technical ability. And so I think I don't think I could choose between the mentality and the technical side. But what I would say is if out of thin air I were to start my own soccer club, I would tell the coaches results don't matter as much. The kids can never know that. They need to be desperate to win every moment, all the time, in training, knowing that their training performance will directly have an impact on who plays and how much. And winning is everything to them. But when we train, we're going to do like nonstop technical ability, recognition of space, things that are on an individual level, and kind of ignore the scouting and the tactics and that kind of stuff and leave that to them to problem solve in games. So I think that youth development needs more of the technical and spatial awareness thing, and that it's the coaches' jobs to drive the competitiveness and not have them know that we don't really care if you're winning every tournament.
Yeah.
Because the kids need to be desperate for it.
Let's shift up to the current chapters. Start with you, Sam. Recently, because when we spoke a while back, and I've seen you, in the hood, bumping into different places and connecting, whether it's coffee or eggs or whatever. You kind of were neutral on playing, and in the past couple months, you weren't neutral on playing. You were playing, specifically TST. Was that a goal? Was it fun? Was your phone blowing up? Did you chase it? And what did you think of the experience over in Cary?
Yeah, playing's been an interesting experience. I think that since we last spoke on the pod, I broke my collarbone. I don't think I had done that.
No, I knew you had done that after we talked.
Yeah, and so playing soccer and trying not to get hurt. So I think that the hard part for me is part of what I loved so much about soccer was the mentality piece. But if you're going to bring that mentality to a men's league game, there's a good chance you're going to get hurt because the plumber that doesn't care about showing up for work tomorrow is going to punt you and it's going to hurt and you're going to get hurt. So that's been like kind of my, like, I love soccer. I love playing soccer, but I can't be myself. And so then that's not as fun. But the one thing that I tell everyone, if anyone's ever going to ask me to play soccer that's listening, my first response and only response is I'll play if Chris plays. And he says no a lot. So
are you the muscle? Is that it? Like it?
No.
The reason for it is because that is when I'm my happiest, when we're best friends. And so when you play in the backyard with your best friend, there's a different feeling and you think the same way. We were built the same exact way at Wake Forest. And so even being on the field in a men's league, we'll do things like maybe a pass or like a subtle look to each other or something that's just so fun for us that no one else will even know happened, that I get a lot of joy from that. So I typically stay away, but TST, I told him if Chris plays, and Chris was going to play and then shifted into the head coaching role. And I was a late addition to to the squad, but it was a ton of fun. It was.
So coaching yourself currently, the one thing that I noticed is I want to talk about Forest Park Rangers in what is that, Midwest Premier League, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know some of the people that are involved with that. Who called you? You know, what was the impetus? You know, why'd you say yes, and what exactly is it that you're doing?
Yeah. I got a call from Tim Koppel, who also is involved with dueling. And he said, "Hey, there's this club. It's starting in the Midwest Premier League, and it's totally fan run. And I would love for us to be like running the soccer side of it." And I said, "What's the Midwest Premier League?"
Right.
You know, and so I still don't think I know as much about the entire thing as I would like to, but the people involved are so passionate and so dedicated. I do know that it's a totally fan-run organization, and I think that alone, along with the fact that it's something brand new, I think was really cool for me, because you get to, almost like we were talking about before, you get to brand something yourself. We can turn it into whatever it is we want to, and this is a group of fans that, for whatever reason, one reason or another, I think it's very individual, has decided we need something for ourselves. And there's plenty of soccer in the city, and they've felt ignited by it, but also maybe disconnected to it, to the point that they need to start something else. And I think that is a really cool process to be a part of.
Well, because there's a good chunk of those individuals, because I know some of the names and faces.
Yeah.
They come, they're kind of like OGs from the standpoint of STLFC. They were, you know, part of the fan group, the fandom that was going out to Soccer Park, you know, in the teens, you know, with that USL, with the USL team. And obviously they're, you know, the Venn diagram of American Outlaws and STLFC fans, and, you know, who's associated with Forest Park, who are also supporters club or supporters group at, you know, City. Mm-hmm. It's the same people, right? What is it about the group, about the fan, about the support that, you know, maybe surprised you or excites you or impresses you?
Yeah, I think the most refreshing part has been their approach to the soccer side of things. You know, without pointing any fingers or pointing in any direction, I coached in the professional realm for 3 years and was a little bit disheartened by the off the field experience. And so my hesitation with joining with Forest Park Rangers was, I don't necessarily want to hitch my name to anything that I don't necessarily wholeheartedly believe in. And so meeting these people and seeing the way they go about things, it was really refreshing, and it really made it easy for me to say, yeah, I would love to be a part of this in whatever capacity.
So let me ask kind of a wind-up question here, which brings you to St. Louis. A couple parts to this question, because, you know, you're a Georgia kid. You went to Wake. You were in the ACC. You saw those soccer communities through college. You then spent years in New York, Montreal, Houston, Oklahoma, Portland, Cincy, and probably a few other, you know, stops, micro or macro, accordingly. Now you're in St. Louis. So 2 questions. What brought you to St. Louis, number one? And number 2, now that you're here, talk about your impression of kind of the soccer culture that is here, top to bottom, from, you know, the top team through to the neighborhoods, you know, including the Forest Park supporters, et cetera. What is it about St. Louis as a soccer town that, you know, has drawn you or is different than these other cities that you spent time in?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I came to St. Louis because of Sam. So I had an opportunity to coach with St. Louis City's second team, which I was really interested in, but I had the exact same opportunity with Houston Dynamo's second team, but Sam was here. So, you know, made it a pretty easy choice for me to move to St. Louis. I didn't know hardly anything about the city except for the fact that every off season I'd come visit him and hang out in Edwardsville. So, but I
Up the bluff.
yeah.
He would actually come back and make friends with my friends, and then they would start like texting each other to hang out without me. I'm like, hey man, this is not what I.
Are you playing pickleball too? I gotta ask that.
Not as much.
Okay.
Not as much as him, but I do like it. I do enjoy it.
So you come here, City 2. Bobby Murphy was probably head coach, right?
He was. Yeah.
Your buddy's now in town. You've been here for 3 years, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis is a soccer town. How would you describe it? You know, having been in all these other cities that quote are soccer cities, what's the difference?
Yeah. St. Louis is unique in that way because there's like 3 or 4 cities that call themselves Soccer City USA, right? Like,
Oh, I know who they are.
I'm pretty sure Portland did when I was there. I think Kansas City does, right? Like, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
When I got here, I was like, okay, yeah, another soccer city, great. But I think St. Louis, Portland, I think has an argument, but St. Louis probably embodies it more than anywhere else I've seen. It is ingrained in the history. Like, there is no other city where you can just wear the youth club's gear and that be like normal.
Yeah, it's like, what high school did you go to?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
People walk around here with Scott Gallagher gear, and that's like it's a normal thing. And I'm like, that for adults, not normal in any other city.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool. And people, there's not just one place to watch soccer games. There's tons of them. I think in that way, St. Louis is very unique. I do think on the playing side, it's interesting because the nature of St. Louis, I think a lot of people grow up here and want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not as much exposure to other cultures, other things. And so I think it actually may hurt our soccer a little bit here just because, I mean, growing up in Georgia, if we're playing a team from California, doesn't matter what team, you kind of have a general gist of how they're going to play.
Yeah.
And the same with a New York team or a Texas team. And St. Louis has its playing culture. And so with people growing up here and not necessarily wanting to leave, there's a little bit less exposure to those different cultures and the different styles of play, which I think has been interesting because we even see it with our TST team, right? It's a bunch of St. Louis guys.
Grinders,
blue collar, hard workers.
Well, you know what's funny is that moniker, that descriptor, so to speak, you can go back in time. And if you started to run through the names, right, the names of St. Louis soccer, you go back to the early days of Pat McBride, and Al Trost, Steve Petcher, and then as you ratchet up to Steve Ralston, right? Steve Ralston was Sam Fink Part 1. Was literally cut, told no, go away, etc. Next thing you know, he's an MLS, all-time best 11, right? Because he was told no. A Brad Davis, even though, a much different kind of player, but go play ping pong with Brad, right? You're going to get in a fight.
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing. And now you fast forward. It's funny because I look at Josh Sargent. He's a different kind of player. Mm-hmm. Not a typical St. Louis-esque player, number one, because he's a 9, right? We're not known for a lot of 9s in this town. More 6s and center backs, right? And it is a mindset. And I agree with you. And I think the one thing that has happened over the past 30 years in particular that has forced kind of that cultural reaction, a shift in, okay, what do we need to do? Because there's other things out there, was the influx and the introduction of the Bosnian community into St. Louis. And I know people are going to get this, especially the TST guys. Anybody that's played in the minor cup will understand this. 4 years, when you played indoor, in your off season, you're going to go take on the guys from the high school days or the club days. It was fun. It was competitive, but it was fun. And then here come the Bosnians who are good, who don't like you, who are the outsiders. And they elevated the game. in a much different way, right? And it's still percolating down into the youth club, kind of a difference in mindset and in training and approach. But you're right. I've never thought about it or said it out loud, but we are a closed society when it comes to St. Louis style soccer. And so my question to you is, where do you see it fitting in the national plan, in the grand scheme? Because this is, even with Tim Ream on the field this time around as captain, there's not been a World Cup in which a St. Louis presence hasn't been part of the anchor of the team. It just hasn't been, from Tritshoe all the way up, right? Where do you think we stand today as an adopted St. Louisan?
Wow.
Big question.
Yeah.
Better be the right answer, because these people will come after you.
I wish I knew more about the top players coming out of the city. But I do think there's always a place for a person. Like, I will always choose the guy that's going to be the blue collar, hardworking. I want a guy that's reliable. I want a guy that when everything's going wrong, I look over and he's there. Not the guy that's going to be flashy and flair and he's maybe going to score all the goals and whatever. I don't know that I can trust that guy. The blue-collar guy I know I can trust. And I think no matter how high of a level you get, there's a need for that guy. Mm-hmm. And I think St. Louis does that kind of player incredibly well. I think where the disconnect kind of comes is a little bit of the savviness that you need in the